Welcome to the Live from Rest podcast. Today we are going to be looking at gratitude, a key to joy. I'm Steve Smith, your host and the author of the Live from Rest app. Each week in this podcast, we take time to explore the ancient art of being. We host conversations, short talks and reflections about how we can live from rest in a world full of busyness and distraction. We created the Live from Rest app because we needed it, and we think you might need it too. If you haven't done so already, please make sure that you go to the App Store or to Google Play Store and download it today. Discover meditation rooted in the way of Jesus and a life of peace with freedom from anxiety, worry, and strife. So today we're looking at gratitude, in particular, its relation to joy and mental well-being. What I want to say is this: whatever your situation, consciously choosing gratitude is transformational. It is one powerful thing that you can do to help yourself to become the happier person you want to be. There's an Austrian Benedictine monk named Brother David Steindl-Rast, I hope I've pronounced that correctly, who gives a talk entitled, "If You Want to Be Happy, Be Grateful." This talk can be viewed on the TED channel or on YouTube. It's had something like 11 million views, so he's obviously got something that's well worth hearing. And I encourage you to look him up after this maybe. Brother David observes that many people have wealth, possessions, good relationships, maybe all they could want, but are not happy. Conversely, there are many who experience great lack and who have circumstances that by anyone's standards are difficult, yet they can be very happy. The difference, David argues, is that happy people are grateful. So this statement begs the question, are grateful people happy because they're grateful, or are happy people grateful because they're happy? What I'm asking is that, are there people who are fundamentally happy who become grateful, or is it that there are grateful people who become happy? Many of you will know of Brené Brown. She's recently become very well known as a speaker. She's a research professor at Houston, Texas. She's particularly well known for her talks and a book on vulnerability. And the area of gratitude is something that Brené Brown has researched. And she says this: "I never talk about gratitude and joy separately. For this reason, in 12 years, I've never interviewed a single person who would describe their lives as joyful who was not actively practicing gratitude." And I understand that Brené had researched something like 11,000 pieces of data to come to that conclusion. I think what's important here is the practice of gratitude. It's something we actively do, something we need to cultivate. And it actually requires grit and determination, but the benefits far outweigh any costs. We're talking about engaging in a process that has a result. The process of cultivating produces a wonderful fruit, the fruit of joy. I know there's been many times when I have encouraged an attitude of gratitude. That's a phrase that many of us have used and heard. And when we talk about an attitude of gratitude, perhaps we're talking about an emotion. And an emotion is not something that we can just turn on. Perhaps we can to some degree, but it's not going to be deep. But any of us can choose an activity. That is, I'm talking about the activity of cultivating, of practicing gratitude. And this has the wonderful fruit of joy. Since taking an interest in this subject recently, my wife and I have been doing some searches on this whole subject, and we found that it's actually really well researched. This is really exciting. I've become very inspired by what I've found. There are various studies that I found through looking this up, and one particular one caught my attention. That is one of a study of 300 patients with depression and anxiety. And these 300 people were randomly assigned to 3 different groups. One group were encouraged to write regular letters of gratitude over, I guess it must be a 12-week period. Another group, separate group, were told to journal their deepest thoughts and their negative attitudes. And the third group were told to do nothing. And I bet you can guess the results. Those who engaged in gratitude, who were actively choosing to write a grateful letter, had significantly better scores in their mental health at 4 weeks and 12 weeks. And as a doctor, just so you know, by the way, I'm a GP, a general practitioner, what our American friends would call a family physician. And I specialize in drug and alcohol addiction. And I've become very excited by the prospect of actually prescribing gratitude in my work. I've heard of some people doing this sort of thing. We, as doctors, are very used to prescribing drugs, but sometimes we give patients pieces of paper, bits of information, and I feel inspired, if there's not one already, to write a patient information leaflet to give to people, to inspire them, to encourage them to practice gratitude in a ordered way, such as writing a grateful letter every 2 days, choosing to be thankful for 5 things twice a day, something like that. Achieving good mental health is a complex subject. There are lots of factors in what makes us healthy mentally. There's our upbringing, our circumstances, our environment, our life experiences, also maybe our genetics, our hormones. But it's great to consider that there are things that we can actually do for ourselves to promote good mental well-being, and in particular joy. It's similar to things that we can do for our physical well-being. We can choose to eat well, we can choose to exercise, we can choose to go to bed at a good time. And that doesn't necessarily guarantee good physical health, but it certainly helps. And it's great to realize that there are things that we can do to improve our mental well-being. And in particular here, choosing gratitude is a key to good mental well-being. I was inspired to see studies linking gratitude and brain chemistry. And it strikes me that practicing gratitude is literally an antidepressant. One article I read was really interesting, and it was of a man who considered himself to be an atheist, who chose to engage in gratitude in writing a journal. And he describes something that he didn't actually like, and that was an awakening of a spiritual sense, a sense of something outside of himself who he wanted to thank. And it strikes me that there is a powerful spiritual component to the act of gratitude. A psalm that I have loved in the context of worship leading, I sometimes lead worship, is Psalm 100. And a very well-known verse is verse 4. Enter his gates with thanksgiving and his courts with praise. Perhaps here there is an indication that by choosing thanksgiving, we are actually entering into the presence of God. We are activating our spirits, if you like. This whole teaching of gratitude is not new. I was interested to read of the ancient Greek storyteller Aesop. Aesop wrote Aesop's Fables, which I remember reading as a child. Aesop says, gratitude turns what we have into enough. Gratitude turns what we have into enough. That's very powerful. So this is not a new teaching, and of course it brings me to perhaps what I could have started with and that's the strong association in Scripture between gratitude and joy with peace. Maybe the most striking passage in this respect is Philippians chapter 4. Paul, having told his readers to rejoice, goes on to say, do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts. So it's that act of thanksgiving that results in the fruit of peace. And that again is in the context of rejoicing and joy. So how do we become thankful people? Some of us may have learned to be thankful in our growing up and it comes naturally, but for many of us, our natural inclination is towards various forms of negativity, self-pity, fear and anxiety. And I've been there, and I guess most of us have. And if we're in that camp, we need to practice gratitude. It's interesting that Christians down the ages have said grace at mealtimes. And I've come to consider that mealtimes are a really good opportunity to practice gratitude. Some of you may have already engaged in a gratitude diary. This seems to be something that many people suggest. It's something that I'm going to start suggesting to my patients who are depressed and anxious and stuck in addiction, that they practice gratitude by writing a gratitude diary. And of course, as one who encourages the practice of meditation, let's bring gratitude into our meditations. And so if you're already using the Live from Rest app, you will notice that we've got a whole section, a whole category of gratitude. Whilst I've been preparing for this podcast, I thought it would be good to have a meditation entitled Thank You. So that should now be on the Apple version of the app, and it will appear soon, I hope, on the Android version too. And in the next week or so, I'm going to do a 2.5 minute meditation. So you can use that 2 or 3 times during the day to help you, to prompt you just to say thank you to God for all the good things that he's doing, even if your circumstances are difficult. I'm going to wind it up there. I've gone on for long enough. I think this is a really exciting prospect that we can choose to cultivate gratitude with the very real prospect that it's going to improve our mental health and bring the fruit of joy into our lives. So I encourage you to cultivate gratitude, timetable it, take every opportunity that you can to be thankful. Thank you so much for being with me, and I invite you to subscribe to our newsletter if you aren't getting that already. Go to our website, livefromrest.com, and get in touch with us, and we will keep you posted with all the resources that we are seeking to give to the church through Live From Rest. We've got a YouTube channel with some free meditations. We are about to release some meditations on various free music platforms, including Spotify. We're also planning some webinars, including one on identity, one on better sleep. So watch out for these, and I hope we will see you soon. Bye for now.